In Conversations, and welcome to November. And I hope you are having a wonderful morning. You've got your coffee and you're ready to have a really wonderful conversation with my guest today. The theme of Coffee and Conversations this year has been just bits and pieces from life lessons that I've learned and I put on Facebook a number of times over the last few years. And there's one that has to do with how important words are, and then there is one that has to do with, I think I said something like you can do any exercise to the right music, but just how important kind of being in your body is. So I want to just welcome everybody. If you're in the chat, please let us know where you're calling from. And I am really delighted to introduce Mimi Nartey. Mimi, hello.
Hi, good morning. Good morning.
And you may remember Mimi, I hope you do, from the 2019 Woman Up Conference in San Diego, which was our last in-person conference. And she gave the closing keynote. And I'll never forget, it was the end of, a 3-day, I was exhausted. And I thought, okay, well, I'll just make an appearance and show my face. And then I'm going to go to my room and collapse. And as soon as Mimi started talking, I was just absolutely enthralled with her, her story and her tips and her depth of emotional intelligence and knowledge and just so many things. So anyway, when I thought of the life lessons, I immediately thought of you, Mimi. So
I appreciate that.
Well, you're incredible, and also the leveling up your leadership is the theme for Women Up this month. And one of the things that you've talked a lot about is creating a different narrative for women in leadership, which is amazing. So anyway, I want to just give you a few minutes to give us some background on you, so people that don't know you can get acquainted.
Well, again, thank you so much for having me this morning. I see lots of people saying where they're from in the chat. It's great that we're all together this morning. So welcome to everybody that's here. So I think that we met for the first time at the Women Up Conference in 2019.
Right.
It's just
Although
amazing.
I heard about you because everyone said, we all love Kofi, but have you met Mimi, right?
Yeah.
So that was kind of the background of
exactly. That's fair enough. That's fair enough.
Right.
So yeah, I am married to Kofi Nartey, who is a real estate broker and the owner of Global Real Estate and Development, founder and owner there of Global Real Estate and Development. My own trajectory has been very interesting. I'm kind of fascinated sometimes by my own story and how it has unfolded. But I think, I usually give context to my experience by starting with the book, Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell.
Right.
Because, in that book, he talks about how in order to become prodigious at anything, it takes about 10,000 hours.
Right.
And so what I've found is, that's maybe about a 10-year cycle for me. It gets a little more efficient as you get older. Right. But my first 10,000 hour cycle was around sports. It was around soccer. And I was a professional soccer player. Actually, I joined the Ghana women's national team by 15. So what's funny is I kind of capped out of my first career by 22-ish. I retired from professional soccer. At 22. So I had this very early career cycle, this very early disciplined pursuit of a goal, attain that goal. And then I moved on into academia and I went back to school. I studied environmental science, climate change, and public health. I became an academic. I did a lot of research. My dissertation research was around women's empowerment, which is something that's really dear to my heart, having been a female athlete and having observed the experiences of women all around the world in the international context of what I was doing. So it took me to that point. And I would say just now I'm kind of initiating a new career cycle, a new 10,000 hours around social entrepreneurship. So I am working with Kofi. I'm the director of community and philanthropy at his real estate brokerage, which, it's the first time in our almost 15 years of marriage that we are working together explicitly. Right. So this is exciting new transition for me. But each time, speaking of leveling up your leadership, I do think one way of thinking about it that's been productive for me is, again, after you invest a certain point, you can achieve a mastery in a particular pursuit. And then you can take what you've learned from that experience and level it up into another way of repackaging your gifts and redistributing them for other people.
It's interesting you brought the book up, because it was one of my favorites too, and I think we read it in our strat planning committee when it came out. And one of the most treasured compliments I ever received was from our communications VP, Ann Framrose, after I had delivered an annual forecast. And I remember walking off the stage and, of course, just completely relieved that it was over. And she just looked at me and said, "That's what 10,000 hours looks like." And I just thought,
exactly.
Wow, that's really something. And I think the point, and I think you've made this, and I want to say there's a video of your 2017 speech, and there is also a TEDx talk that you did 5 years ago on sports and empowerment. And I want to encourage everyone, oh my God, time well spent. But one of the points you make in terms of leadership and the 10,000 hours is just the power of focus. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about that, because we tend to multitask and have all of this stuff going on, but you make the point in your life that you were able to kind of get away from needing external validation, and that enabled you to focus. And I'd really love to hear more about that.
Yeah. So, it's taken me some time to really trace back and see what have been the origins of some of the worldviews or perspectives that have lent to my success. It takes time. You have to be critically self-reflective, and you have to give yourself space and time for those things. Right. But one thing that I realized is when I was 8 years old, my family moved to rural Illinois, like the most rural thing that you can imagine. The local high school had tractor trailer parking. Like, it was just kind of the middle of nowhere. We didn't really have cable television. It was really fascinating experience for us. My dad is originally from West Africa. He's from Ghana. My mom is from Mississippi. We just found ourselves plopped down in the middle of like the cornfields, which was, really different. I was the only Black child in the entire school district. And, that came with all different kinds of challenges, but also opportunities. And what I say now is, when I look back at that time, because I was so exceptional in that environment, I wasn't kind of forced to conform to any particular social norm for girls or for African Americans or for anybody, really. I was just such an outlier in that
Nobody
context.
knew what to do with you. Nobody knew what to expect, right? Nobody expected anything.
Nobody expected anything. And so it was such a liberating experience for me, because I could be my authentic self. Now, of course, yes, sometimes I was teased, sometimes I was bullied because I was different, but I never really felt like I couldn't be who I really was, or I had to try to align with some particular standard. And so that really radicalized the way I moved through the world. And I also realized that I wasn't going to receive the same kind of social validation, because, again, I was so exceptional that I just had to learn how to function and be happy without that. So I think it was a real pivotal point for me, where I learned to validate myself, to feel comfortable in myself. And, it's a rare opportunity, especially for a young girl in our society, to really just have all of that power lying within themselves. So, I talk a lot about social privileges and social disadvantages in some of the workshops that I do for parents around social justice parenting. And I say that, it's interesting, because this time where I was maybe arguably the most marginalized was also the time that I had the most social privilege, because I was completely immune from any prescription of what I needed to be doing and I could really find for myself what I wanted to be doing.
As you're speaking, I'm thinking of your dad and your mom and what an influence they had on you being able to perceive this situation and make it a positive,
Right.
And it reminded me of the concept of you grew up ugly. And
Yes.
could you share that story? Because your dad just sounds amazing to me, right? And
My
can
dad
you tell
is
me
such,
what he said to you when you asked him if you were pretty?
yeah, my dad is a very interesting person, very nonlinear thinker. And, part of that is probably coming from a different cultural context, but it just was to my benefit, And so I remember kind of around maybe middle school age, at some point I had said to my dad, Dad, am I pretty? I asked my dad for that validation, which I think is not that uncommon for young
No,
girls, right?
no.
And my dad just says, like, I can't believe, like, what are you worried about being pretty when you're as smart as you are? Like, what are you
Wow.
even, like, that was kind of, such a low barrier to entry and valid on the validation scale. Like, what are you concerned about being pretty when you are as smart as you are? And so right then, instantly, he kind of communicated to me what the values should be and where I should be focusing my priorities. And so again, I wasn't too concerned with the pretty or all of that. It's funny because I to this day I love fashion, I love expressing myself, I feel good about myself, but it was not my paramount measuring stick for my self-worth at all. It was really, how creative can I be, what is my persistence, other kinds of more abstract but more valuable aspects of my character is what came to the forefront.
Like, what a gift your dad gave you, right? To have that. So I want to ask you about words and language a little bit. And I know you've thought about a lot about this and talked about it. And I certainly have always been very sensitive to language and the mantra that you can't take it back, and
Right.
how many times you should just kind of wait, don't say it right away, don't respond to an email right away, because words really matter. And I'm wondering what your take is on language and maybe some of the issues that are arising today, right? In terms
Right.
of what we should do. Because your dad certainly was tapped into that by saying, why would you care about your appearance when you're brilliant,
Right. Right. Exactly. I do think that words are so powerful, and we need to spend the majority of our time and energy focused on the narratives that we are creating for ourselves, for our families. This is where all of our power to grow and change and succeed lies. It lies in our words, because it's a reflection of our mentality.
Right.
And so, I think it's the Four Agreements.
Yes.
With Don Miguel Ruiz, he talks about being impeccable with our word. And I think a lot of times people rush to assume that the meaning behind that has to do with integrity. But I think it's not just about integrity. It's really about aligning our speech with our intention. And this is, a very, very powerful tool for us as individuals. Again, for us, I'm married, for us as a couple to be very, impeccable with our word in the way we communicate to each other, and the way we communicate about each other, and the way we communicate together about the goals that we have for ourselves. And the same thing with our children. We're very, very sensitive to the kind of languaging that we use at all times. So, just for example, because I'm raising two children that are African American, since they're very, very young, I have always told them, I've described them by their skin tone. So I haven't said, you're Black or you're African American. Lots of people have lots of different opinions about, because those are kind of politically charged right. words. And so before having them align with either one of those particular social identities, it's really just a descriptor. How do we describe ourselves? I'm a person with dark skin, or I'm a person with brown skin, I'm a person with light skin, because I didn't want at that stage of their development for it to be linked to any kinds of assumptions for what they should be or shouldn't be or can achieve or can't achieve. So this is just one like small example of in our household how we're trying to be impeccable and very intentional with the way that we articulate and communicate about ourselves to create more opportunity.
Right. And I think the things that you're told early on kind of stick with you, and I look at the women in my generation, again, not everyone, I'll just speak for myself, but there were a lot of mixed messages, about, being loud, don't be too loud,
Right.
and be deferential. And I find, my go-to is be deferential, don't be the loud one, don't be the first one. One of the stories I told on the Women Up stage was a test in fifth grade where we were brought up 5 at a time, alphabetical order. And in my group was the smartest guy in the class. He was the most popular, the most athletic, and the smartest. And we had to read a couple paragraphs, raise our hand, and get the test, right?
Okay.
And, I finished first, and I didn't raise my hand until after he did, because I was sure that I had missed something, that I had done something wrong if I could finish before him.
Right.
And one of my hopes is there's not a girl
Right.
left today that would do that, but by age 10, I got the message.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, what you're saying is so important, again, which is why I spend so much of my time around social justice parenting and really trying to make sure that we are positioning our children to have, again, the most opportunity. I think what you're saying about, having received this messaging on a subconscious level, the reason why that's so problematic is because it does plant somewhere in the garden of our subconscious mind. And once it's in there and it takes hold, it's like a big weed infestation. It's very, very difficult to do the work later in life to kind of pull out, like, where did these thoughts or these limiting beliefs come from? Where did this start? So, that's where my passion for being very careful and intentional with the way we roll out ideas to children about themselves, about their position in the world, about their capacity, about others, and about the capacity of others.
Yeah, that's so important, and it kind of reminds me of this whole concept of expectations, and at one point you said that the expectations of women in leadership are all kind of set through a male lens.
Yes.
And that's why we need to redefine the narrative. And it's such a powerful message. And I just want to ask you about your leadership evolution. I mean, when did you kind of figure out that you wanted to take this and run with it, and spread the word as beautifully as you have? How did that happen?
I think, some of us always have had maybe more of an executive bent. So I think, from a young age, I've always been a bit assertive, not necessarily like the most extroverted, but I've had a strong sense of myself and just my values and what I believe. And I've had the courage and the support and the space created for me to be able to express that. So what's funny, in our house, we have a family culture where you can really say what you think. You might get some pushback, but we really value that open conversation. And so nobody really has a problem with anybody for very long. We'll just take it to family court. Everybody's there. We kind of share.
Love that.
Family court. This is what happened. So all of those kinds of subtle things kind of develop in you a little bit more confidence and a little bit more boldness. And then I had this very interesting set of life experiences where we moved 13 times when I was growing up, all around the United States. So I only have 2 states that I haven't been to yet, Alaska and South Dakota, trying to get there. And then I had this, like I said, this international soccer career. And I just realized, like, I'm having a unique set of experiences that are preparing me for, for something meaningful. And when I went to Ghana, I was playing with the Ghana national team and I contracted malaria. And that was when I really became invested in the health experiences of people in developing countries and developing nations. And I realized, like, soccer, because I was so passionate about soccer, was the vehicle that took me to that place, to be able to see what I saw. And the burden was on me to be able to shine a light on the experiences of the people there and to be able to do something. So I think it's really, partially because of my sports background, I think you develop that willingness to answer the call in a moment. I think that's part of what it is during sports. It's like, are you going to step up right now and take this shot? Or can you carry this situation? Can you carry the team in this moment? Can you do this? So I think that's part of what developed in me. But also just that idea of servant leadership. And I've been put here for a certain purpose in service to these people who may or may not be able to bridge this gap for themselves. But I'm the person that's here. So I need to step up in this moment. And, and so that's kind of the most extreme example, talking about like women in Africa and trying to advocate on their behalf. But I just think women and people all over the world, we're trying to, bridge gaps and help people develop themselves and reach their highest potential. And it's just a call that resonates with me.
Right. And you're helping create this new narrative. And it really is such a beautiful thing. So anyway, this is a perfect segue to talk about sports. So I want to know was your dad a soccer player? I mean, how did your relationship to athleticism start? I assume it was very young.
Yes. So my dad was a soccer player. Soccer is like a national pastime in Ghana.
Yeah.
He had been a very talented soccer player, but my dad's very brilliant, really smart guy, like perfect score on the SAT, smart. So
one of those, right?
One of those. He's one of those. I wasn't one of those, but he's one of those. And so he didn't really ever get the chance to, like, let's say, develop himself as an athlete because opportunities were very limited. He's trying to get out of, this circumstances that he was in Ghana. He ended up coming here on a student visa to the United States to better himself, all of that. But he always just loved soccer, loved playing it. And so he and I would go to the soccer field when I was 8 years old, start playing soccer, started playing on a team. He coached me. And, I think my dad and I really bonded very deeply over this activity. It was a common ground for us. Right. And so for me, that was part of my passion for this. It was, my relationship with my dad was so intertwined with my soccer experience.
And did you love it from the start? I mean, you started it and just was like, this is it. This is great.
Loved it. It was so fun to me. It was such an interesting challenge. It was fun to share in the passion with my dad. Something like I said, that we could both talk about. It wasn't going to be like Barbies. It wasn't going to be, but this was something where we could both get excited and we could, watch the games and see the players. And so what's funny is I ended up playing in the 2002 African Women's Cup of Nations. I earned a silver medal there with my team. And then we came to the Women's World Cup in 2003. And I retired from professional soccer after that. And so many people are like, you were 22. Why would you retire? But really, I don't think like my life's purpose was to be a professional soccer player. I just wanted to honor the time that really my dad and I had invested in this process by attaining that goal. So that we could have like a good, solid closure to the experience and to that journey, that process that we had been in.
Plus to have this early on-the-job training in terms of focus, commitment, discipline. I mean, all of the things that you learn when you are engaged in a team sport, coupled with just how good it feels to have cardio and have a strong body.
Right.
So speaking as someone who missed out on all of that, because I grew up in a world where sports, it certainly wasn't encouraged. It might not have been actively discouraged, but it was pre-Title IX, which said, if you take federal funds, you can't discriminate in terms of how you spend them. So I just had kind of this love-hate relationship with my body and with exercise and sports until honestly, 6.5 years ago when I walked into a spin class and just, it like hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, I love this, right? And here's my Peloton bike right there.
I love it.
Right. It's like, I can't. So I've come to many things very late in life, but I like get it, and what it how good it feels to feel your power and your physical strength. I think, if you're physically strong, you have maybe a better chance at being mentally strong. I think there's all of that tied in. So I really want to talk to you about that and what you see in terms of the connection between sports and female empowerment, and the lessons and just how important it is to find something, whatever it
Yes.
is, find it.
Right. Find it. You know what? I think someone just commented, Tina just commented, better late than never. And I think
Yeah,
that's exactly the first
right.
point that I was going to open with, which is that, there's no time expiration on this kind of process.
No,
This
no.
idea of becoming embodied is what sports offers to us, particularly as women, but both as women and men, to kind of see the full extent of what your physical capacity is extremely powerful. It's a very powerful process. It's an enlightening process. It's an emboldening process. And so this is something that I'm really passionate about. I actually received a grant from the Kaiser Foundation a few years ago to develop a course on women's sports and empowerment at Occidental University, where I was teaching, because I felt that this is something that should be brought into an academic discourse, because it's really important and undervalued.
Right.
And, so Kofi and I, a couple of years ago, started a nonprofit foundation so that young children, children of all ages really can get access to this opportunity to play sports, because there are so many critical and nebulous skills that come out of this. So this idea of leadership and self-belief and goal setting and teamwork, and especially for kids that come from difficult circumstances, just an opportunity to have fun and to escape, the other reality. Sports, the world of sports to me is like an alternate way of organizing society. So when a couple years ago, one of my really good friends, who's Native American, she's Navajo, she invited us to a canalda, which is a coming of age ceremony in the Navajo community. So when girls reach a certain age, they have like a 5-day process of becoming a woman. And so we were invited to come and participate in that process. So we were out in a hogan, kind of in the middle of the reservation in Arizona. We took our kids. There's a lot to it. There's running, there's like preparing breads, there's preparing fires, there's so many things. What was so amazing especially for my children, but for all of us, was to observe that society that's organized as a matriarchal society. It's a matriarchy. And so it revolutionized, again, what the expectations were for my children, or the assumptions, I guess I should say, about how a society can be organized and how things can function and what it can be like. Just because we live in a society that's this way doesn't mean that that's how it has to be. There are other possibilities. And I feel like the environment of sports is a different kind of social organization, one that I think is, provides a bit more mobility than our current society as it currently stands, our current traditional Western society. So there are a lot of opportunities in the way that sports, kind of being more of a merit-based system, kind of being more based on things that aren't connected to other kinds of social status or standing, as we have in our current society. It offers that opportunity. So again, we've been really, excited to support kids. One of the programs that we support that I'm really passionate about is helping girls who have been in juvenile halls in Los Angeles, who are victims of sex trafficking, get access to ballet. So obviously in this opportunity, we are conceiving ballet as a sport. To me, I feel that it's an embodied activity that can be competitive. It's a sport, but that's so important for them, who they haven't had that ownership over their bodies. Right. And so this is really, really an important opportunity to take control of your physical being again. It's just really powerful to see the way that this translates into their healing.
Right. And like you said, this personal power that you develop from feeling strong and feeling that strength in your body. And as I said, it doesn't matter what it is, but just find something that you enjoy doing, and do it on a regular basis. And it's, I grew up with all kinds of stereotypes about the dumb jock,
Yep.
and I remember for years thinking, I don't get any of this. It's just a ball.
Right.
It's just a ball. They're getting it in the net. They're getting it over
right.
They're getting a touchdown. Like, what's the thing? And in the spirit of, it's never too late, living with John, who is a huge sports, we've got the European soccer on Saturday mornings, and he's worked the table at basketball games at Georgetown for 50 years. I mean, his knowledge of sports is so deep. And I'm just seeing it so differently,
Right.
In terms of what it's done for people and what people learn. So it's kind of, we all have our biases, right?
Right.
And
for sure.
Right.
And I think, yeah, it's hard if you aren't really a part of it. But what I would say is, in more recent years, I've had like a lot of opportunity to study books like As a Man Thinketh, or to reflect on like ideas about manifestation. And really, I realized that I first had this education through sports. Right. Even though I didn't have the, exact framework articulated for me in the same way, but all of these things about mindset and how that links to your behavior and the way that you view yourself and discipline and doing things in a certain way, all of that was the preparation that I had received playing sports, committing to it for that long, to that level.
I think one of the things I feel about it is with sports, you have a goal, you want to win, whatever that looks like in that particular game, you want to win. And I was raised in an era where women didn't want to win. You weren't supposed to win. You shouldn't win. You should let them win.
Right.
You should defer. And that's one of the things I think is so positive, because I have, two daughters who are now in their 30s, and they both did the soccer thing for a long time. And I look at the younger ones. My 3-year-old has a little soccer team. So it's very different. And it really gives me hope, because I just remember, sitting in so many keynote presentations that were just full of sports analogies. And not only did I not understand what they were, I was irritated that I had to hear them,
Right.
A full play-by-play on a football. It wasn't part of my world. And I think making sports part of everyone's world, you may not be, a fan, 100%, but at least you get the important things to learn out of that activity and what these people are doing on the field. So I've really come, not all the way, but I've come a long way.
Well, kudos to you, because I think I'm always so impressed and inspired by people that are willing to grow and evolve and change at every stage. Like I consider myself a lifelong learner. I always say, like, I wake up in the morning willing to be a beginner. So just that's amazing and encouraging to even hear that you are able to own, like, I used to think about it this way. Now I've had these exposures that have caused me to reevaluate what my ideas were on that. And I'm open to, conversation and furthering my knowledge on this to see how I can, what are other people, that curiosity rather than the judgment is what is inspiring me right now.
Well, and I think there is a certain amount of ageism, that happens, and you get older and you get invisible. And, I'm 69, and I have never been happier. I have never felt more empowered. And, there's still some demons to fight, but it's never too late. And I know when you're younger, you think of an age like that, and it's like, oh my God, it's all over by then. And I just want to tell everyone who's listening, who is decades away from where I am, you know what? It just keeps getting better. It can just keep getting better. You just have to stay interested and stay curious, you know. And one of the things you talk about, I just want to touch on really for a minute, is just who do you let into your circle and who do you let go of? You know, how do you kind of protect yourself from experiences and people that aren't going to take you where you want to go? And I think you had a few really great insights on that.
Yeah, I think that's a really important process too. Again,
Yeah.
through sports, through other experiences, you learn that part of discipline, one of the biggest parts of discipline is that process of elimination. And so, learning to eliminate, and I think one metaphor that I like to use is sometimes decreasing the size increases the value, like a nickel and a dime.
Yes.
So you just can get more instead of spreading yourself too thinly. Really focusing your time and attention on the few places that really matter, the few individuals that really matter to what it is that you're trying to accomplish and pursue, and the way you're trying to unfold yourself. I think that's just really, really huge. And I can't believe you're 69. That's amazing and exciting.
It is. It's
And I think,
wonderful.
at the Woman Up Talk, I was talking about this because my name is Mimi. I
Right.
always say that I am looking forward to like my aging process. My birthday's on Friday, actually, Leslie. And I will be turning 40, but I've always said that Mimi is a grandmother's name.
Right.
So I'm looking to peak kind of later in life. And you don't peak when your name is
Yes.
Mimi at like 20. That's just the start.
No,
So
you
I am
don't.
looking
You've got a name
forward.
for the long haul.
Exactly. I'm like, I am looking forward to being like this amazing diva, 70, 75, 80. That's when I'm going to really hit my stride as a Mimi. So,
Well, I have one granddaughter. She's 3.5. She actually spent the night last night, and I'm bringing out all the things that were important to me. So every time she comes over, she has to listen to me read Madeline. And
I
um,
love Madeline.
right, I got her a doll, and when I first gave it to her last week, she was kind of ho hum, but last night she actually slept with it. So I said, Izzy, for Halloween next
Oh,
year, you can be Madeline and I'll be Miss Clavel. She kind of
I love
looked
it.
at me like, no. So we'll see. But yeah, Mimi is definitely, you've got a lot to look forward to. So I want to cover two more topics before the hour comes to a close, Mimi. And one is, well, I talked about having a granddaughter, about parenting, and you really do so much and give so much, and I just can't even tell you how amazed I am by you. um, how does the parenting part fit into all of that, and any thoughts you might have? I know there's a lot of women that are going to listen to this that have children, some of them young
Mhm.
children like you.
Yeah, and I just definitely have a heart for women that are balancing or negotiating that personal development against, the process, which is a very sacrificial process of being a parent, being a mother.
Yeah.
So wherever I can offer encouragement or support, I love to do that especially for women. I'm a girl's girl for women, for women. I think again, because I came from this household that was just very honest, we're very transparent about the entire process. I'm very transparent with my daughter, with my son about, what my goals are, what my process is to achieving my goals, the successes, the setbacks that I'm experiencing. And I think all of that is just, great preparation for them. I think they're clear on what our, kind of like mission and vision are as a family. And we've kind of conceived us all as a team, supporting each other, working together. We're an organization, we're an enterprise, this household, around this mission and vision statement. We have something to offer the world as a family. And we're trying to make sure that we are supporting each other and giving back. And I think, so far, so good. I think, as far as the parenting angle with my kids, I think the most important thing is to try your best to live what your values are. And so I mentioned to you that my daughter is in a homeschool hybrid program right now. That kind of came about because I just had a moment of thinking, like, I really want to live what I value with her right now. She's in this middle school age, and I just feel like there's a lot of support that she needs. It's formative years for her. I want to kind of step back right now and align my priorities with my actual life.
Right.
And
Right.
so, it was difficult. It was a big transition. It was a hard transition to be able to do that. But, I knew it's not a forever thing, but I wanted to, I say, like, this is where my priority lie. I want as much of my time and attention as possible to go into this space at this time.
Right.
And so that's the best I can do, is say, this is what I believe in, and this is what I'm going to try to execute on. It's not perfect. I mean, none of it's perfect. But I think that the love and respect that I have between myself and my daughter, and even myself and my son, even though he's not in the homeschool thing right now, is just, I think they really recognize that I do try to line up my actions with what I say I believe in.
Right. And I think
in terms of my relationship with them, my relationship with their dad, what I'm trying to do in service for other people, I think that's the biggest way to feel successful in this very crazy process of being a parent.
Right. And I think, modeling what you're telling them is the only way for them to take you seriously, right? Because they see it all.
Right.
And if you're saying one thing and doing another, it's like, wait, that's not, I think a corollary to this is one of my favorite life lessons, which is I always wanted my inside to match my outside. And that's how I would describe where I eventually got. And it's just kind of, you know it when you're there, you just can kind of relax into who you are, because that's it. That's where you're supposed to be.
I love that. So, and that's very, very simple and digestible. And I'm even going to share that with my daughter today.
Please.
Yeah.
So I also want to talk to you just for a minute about your partnership, your marriage. I spent a lot of my life kind of being, I guess, embarrassed that I've had two marriages that didn't last, and kind of making excuses and just whatever it was, it was not like the plus side of my ledger, if you will. And I've really gotten to the point where I don't think it's all a woman's fault, when you are, I guess what I'm trying to say is there aren't a lot of men out there that can support a successful woman, and who are willing to make sacrifices in their career for her career. I mean, they're very happy for you to do it all, but in terms of this shared partnership, and now that I am finally in the kind of relationship I never even imagined existed, and it's just the most wonderful thing that's ever happened to me, I'm like, it's possible. So that's kind of a sore spot for me. And I just wanted to ask you about that with respect to your wonderful husband. How do you work it out? And are you as supported as you seem to be? And just how do you kind of see that in your life?
Yeah, I think I definitely feel like I'm in a blessed partnership, very fortunate. And I think, Leslie, there are all different aspects of ourselves where I feel like the pieces fit in at different times. So where I think for myself, fortunately, the relationship piece, I met Kofi while I was playing in the World Cup when I was 22. Wow. So that piece fell in kind of early. There are definitely, other aspects of my life where it didn't fit in early. It's just, there are many pieces, and some of them do get positioned right.
Right. I love that.
Right. At the right time. And some of them, it takes much longer. So I can totally understand what you're saying, and where so many other aspects of your storied, amazing career, fit in place first. They can't all fit in at once. No. So yeah, I think, for our relationship, I definitely think we hit a stride where we set our goal as a couple, what we want to do in life. And it really came from thinking Kofi's father's also from Ghana. And, I mentioned my dad's from Ghana, my mom's from Mississippi. And really, my parents have done so much to change the entire trajectory of our family genealogy. I mean, coming from kind of the most impoverished circumstances that you can imagine, in Africa, in rural Mississippi, to where I've been able to access an amazing education. My sister, from now on, generations moving forward, college is an option. There's just so many opportunities, and that was on their hard work.
Yes.
So, and the same with Kofi's dad. And so we just are looking at his mom and his stepmom, just looking at our parents and saying, like, what are we going to contribute to our genealogy? What impact are we going to make for future generations? What's going to be different indefinitely now? And that gives us a real sense of purpose as a couple. And we decided for us, it was really going to be around social capital. So just building up social capital, because we are, at least on one side of our family's, first generation, Americans.
Everything.
Right. Yeah. So we're first generation. And so we're just furthering the process of establishing our family in the United States. And so once we got aligned on that, once we had the conversation that was able to crack that open as this is what we're trying to do, and we see how our individual development and the development of our children all kind of plays towards that goal, we can work together as a team. And I think that's what has to happen in long-term partnerships, is that there has to be some sort of vision of the world, of yourself in the world that you're trying to bring about, that's like a higher purpose level. And it's like a group project that we're working on to execute in this lifetime. I also think that, I had a transition in the way that I thought about marriage that was productive, where I realized it was kind of more about me than about him. And marriage is kind of a choice. It's a process that you elect into for your own personal development and edification. So it's like, yeah, can I be sacrificial? Can I have a moment where I put someone else's needs above mine? Can I be forgiving? Can I be vulnerable? There are a lot of things that are really about me more than about him. And so I just see it as an honor to be able to be a witness to someone else's life. I see it as an opportunity that not everybody else gets, to unfold these aspects of my character and find these fruits of my spirit, the patience, the forgiveness, all of those things. But I also see it as like a very important friendship where we're working together to better the world and our family. And I think he fortunately sees it the same way. And that's the basis of how the partnership works.
Wow. To have such intention about your life. And I see this recognition that, I've always said to my kids, no one gets out of here alive, right? There's a limited amount of time that you have on this earth to make a difference. And it's like that's just kind of assumed in this intentional partnership that you have together, and how you see the world and the impact that you want to have. And it's just a beautiful lesson, I think, for those of us that have come to it so late. I mean, I think, I'm looking at my life and thinking, like, I always felt lucky to have a job. I was like, someone really wants to marry me, and like, where did that come from? I think when you see value in who you are, it raises the bar. You know what I mean? It's like, they're lucky that I'm working there, and that person's lucky to know me. And I see so much more of that in women today than in my generation. And it just gives me so much pleasure and hope, really.
Definitely. I believe in that confidence. And what's funny is the story that I often tell, because I mentor a lot of students. Again, I used to teach undergraduates. And I would always tell them about my application process. So I applied to graduate school a couple of different times. All the time, for me, interestingly, I just applied to the one place I wanted to go. So I did my research, I figured out where I wanted to go, and that's where it was. And I said, my statement of purpose or my admissions letter always kind of has the same tenor. This is who I am. This is what I've been doing. This is what I'm going to do. And I would love the opportunity to partner with your institution on that goal.
Wow.
So that's just what it is. Like, because so if there's a chance for us to work together on this or not, but I know what I'm going to do. Right. And I've done the research and I think there's an alignment here. But, you know, just to be able to have that sense of purpose, that vision, that it really is a self-worth. And you do have to come into that with your relationships. And I think I've always been kind of forthright. My husband knows he's got his hands full.
And I think this, again, just to circle back to sports and athleticism and strength, and that's all part of this, you know, realization that you are somebody in the world that's important, you know, and what you think matters, and you're, you know, you can do it, you know.
Right. And I think, you know, because Kofi was also an athlete, it also works in our partnership, because part of what you do learn in team sports is, you know, even if you are the star quarterback, sometimes it just comes down to the kicker, the guy off the bench, and that's for the win. Right. So you do kind of learn those dynamics, those shifting dynamics. And so sometimes you are out in front and sometimes you take a step back for the benefit of the team.
Right. Right. Mimi, I can't believe our time is just about up. So I just wanted to give you an opportunity if there's anything else that you wanted to talk about, or parting words or anything. And I can't thank you enough for today. You are just an amazing person. And I thank you.
I just want to spend my last minute or two just thanking you for creating this space for the conversation. Every time you get to have a conversation like this, it also, you know, for me, it helps me to take a moment to pause, to reevaluate, to deepen my values. So I really appreciate that. And you are a person who is extremely inspirational. You are one of Kofi's heroes for sure. He adores you. He really, really adores you. So he was just, you know, so jealous that I was having this conversation this morning. And so, you know, I just would say there are women like me who really need women like you to continue to create safe spaces, to be vulnerable, and to shine a light on what is our path forward. And your life and your experiences and your leadership matter so much in ways that you may not even recognize. So I just want to make sure that you do recognize that, and that you are acknowledged for that, and you know that you're appreciated. And this is very, very important for our process as women, our sisterhood, our solidarity, our individual development. Just thank you.
Oh, Mimi, you're so welcome. What a gift. What more could I ask for? You know, because you go through life and you have your ups and downs, and you just hope that the lessons that were painful to learn can help somebody else, you know, and then they can go on and have their, you know, do some new stuff. So I want to close with this wonderful quote that I found from you, and it's you and Kofi, and it was, "You can't jump without bending your knees." And I don't know why that resonates with me, but I do think maybe it's a little bit about humility and humanity and what it takes to move forward. But just thank you for that.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you again so much.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us, Mimi. It was fabulous. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their week, a wonderful November. And I'll see you again on December 1st. Thanks so much.